Hello and welcome, as Randy would say. It's time for Team Draft Super League. I'm Marshall Sutcliffe, and I'm with Ben Stark here, and we're kind of the hype men for this thing, aren't we, Ben?
Hey, it's Team Draft. How could we not be? I mean, it's the easiest job in the world.
Yeah, this was one of those ideas. I was actually at the dinner table where Team Draft Super League, Randy was like, maybe we should. I'm like, dude, you got to do this. This thing is just too cool. And I know you were the same way. Once you heard about it, you were just all in as well.
Oh, I've been begging for this for years. I mean, how do you not have Team Draft Super League? I mean, it's the best format of Magic.
Right. So let's get into that, because I know that there's a lot of people out there that have maybe heard about team drafting and kind of a little bit about what's going on with it. But we've got a few minutes here before we get into our first actual live draft and action here to kind of describe what it is that team draft is, how it works, what we're going to be watching as we go through this inaugural season of the Team Draft Super League. So let's get into it. First things first, Ben, what is team draft?
Well, Team Draft is three versus three draft. You have a team of three. You play against another team of three. It's been going on since as long as I can remember. I mean, I know I did team drafts at my first Pro Tour back in 1999. It's pure. It's awesome. One of the things that I really love about it, of course, I love 8-man draft, but the thing is, 8-man draft's very cooperative. You're not really incentivized to fight with the people around you. Team draft is all out war. Team draft is, if you pass good decks, your opponents play against, your teammates play against those good decks, and your teammates' matches are just as valuable to you as your own match. So it's all out war. You're trying to ruin the decks around you. You're trying to get good cards to your teammates. You're trying to draft the best deck you can. I mean, every pick is, just a difficult consideration between how do I maximize the total value for me and my teammates and hurt the opposition's chances and their decks as much as possible.
Yeah, that is such a sweet aspect that you don't get in a normal 8-person draft. Now, logistically speaking, how does it work? You said that there's 6 people in the draft, but how does it work with seeding and that kind of stuff?
Well, you said every other person. So, if one team was me, Luis, and Ifro, like in this, and another team was you, Paul, Cheon, and Kenji, like in this tournament, fairly even teams. Then you would say me passing to you. You would be passing to Luis. Luis would be passing to Cheon. Cheon would be passing to Ifro, and Ifro would be passing to Kenji. So it's every other person. And the reason that's really important is because if I were passing to Ifro and Ifro were passing to Luis, and then you three were all passing to each other, I would just be able to I'm blue-white and I opened a red bomb. I'll just send that downstream to my teammates.
Right.
We'd all cooperate. We'd all work together just like an 8-man. And it would be very easy. It wouldn't be much different than an 8-man because we'd all just be trying to find the open colors because you still can't talk to each other. You can't communicate during a team draft. But if we were sitting 3 next to each other, we'd be just trying to find the open colors, floating every card, cooperating as much as possible. But since you sit every other person, it gets fun.
Yeah, totally. Now, the way it also happens to pan out is really convenient, especially for the scenarios that you were talking about, the late night drafts at the Pro Tour back in the day, that kind of thing, which is that how do you determine a winner? Well, it's pretty straightforward, right? Each player plays each player. And, through that, you get to the first team to get to 5 wins ends up being the winner.
Right. I mean, if everyone plays everyone, you don't play your teammates, obviously, but if you play all 3 opponents and so your teammates, it's 9 matches. So first to 5. Pretty straightforward. So it's
pretty straightforward. First team to 5 matches, 5 match wins the entire match and the draft, as it were. And so that's how it's going to work here on the Team Draft Super League as well. We're keeping this as close to replicating those late night Pro Tour drafts as possible because that really is the purest form. That's the thing that I wanted to try to convey to the viewers today too, right? Is that when you talk about the hardcore Pro Tour Magic players, right? The hardest core, the most spiky, all I care about is winning. The thing that they do when they're not playing in the Pro Tour is they go do team drafts. This represents that pinnacle of competitiveness when it comes to the highest level players. This is what they play to decide who's best.
Oh, yeah. And back in the day, especially, a lot of us, we would bomb out of a constructed Grand Prix and we wouldn't even sleep Saturday night. It was just team drafts all night. Maybe you go to sleep at 6 a.m. and wake up at 10 and come back down and start drafting again. And a lot of these people in this tournament, they were there. Paul Rietzel and Dave Williams and Matt Sperling have been team drafting forever, and me and Ifro and William Jensen, Finkel. Like a lot of the people in this have just been, old school team drafting, just forever.
So let's take a look at how this league works specifically, the structure of it, because, you might have some questions about, well, how is this actually going to play out? So we've got 8 teams lined up on the Team Draft Super League. And when they play, they're going to be playing 2 rounds of Swiss play, for the big picture, right? Now, the 2 teams that end up 2-0, the 2-0 teams are going to advance to the top 4. So there's 4 of those that will be 2-0 after the Swiss, and they will immediately advance to the top 4. The 1-1s, so everybody that's left over, are going to play it out for the other 2 slots. So 2 2-0s, and then the other 2 will come in there and try to get in. And that's it. Anybody who's 0-2, Dobbs, dead, you're out. That's going to be it. And then, of course, we'll play from there to get to the actual champion of this thing. Each time it's 1 team versus 1 team. It's really straightforward. You'll see it today when we get into it. And so the structure is actually pretty straightforward for this season of Team Draft Super League. Now, the show itself, what can you expect to see from an episode of this like we're going to have tonight? Well, we're going to watch a drafter, right? And tonight I'll give you a little sneak peek. We're going to be watching Reed Duke draft his deck, so that should be pretty exciting. And then we're going to start 2 matches simultaneously. And we'll only switch to the second match if the first one finishes. So we're going to watch until the match is done that we start on. But the last 3 matches are going to be shown one at a time. That way you always get a decider on camera, and we'll make sure that we bring you the critical matches. But it's trying to line up, potentially 9 of them could be a little bit too slow. So it's 2, 2, and then the rest of them will be 1 at a time. So that's how that's going to work for this. And then the other thing I wanted to take a look at before we actually get down here, the teams themselves. So we're not going to go over every team because you're going to get a chance to see those as we go through. So I'm not going to go on those. But I did want to tell you that next week, so we're going to have the Scottsdale Foundation. So why don't we take a look at them just briefly here. And then they're going to be playing against your team, actually, Ben, Team Channel Fireball.
You can just refer to us as the best team if you want. You don't have to call my team.
You guys are on the short list. It's hard to argue against the team that you've put together. Now, this one, though, not shabby at all. If you've ever watched any of the team limited events, the GPs, these guys are just always in contention, it seems like, and even having won one. So Matt Sperling, Dave Williams, and Paul Rietzel. I mean, they're one of the powerhouse teams, but it is insane when you actually look at all the teams because they're all powerhouse teams except for one, to be honest. But
which one?
But being realistic, I am a realist, Ben.
Which one?
They're all fantastic. We're going to watch them next week play against you guys. Let's take a look at your team. Unbelievable. I'm kind of shocked that you had the gall to field this team. Ben Stark, Luis Scott Vargas, and Eric Froelich, the triple Hall of Fame, just beast mode. You guys are just absurd. I'm kind of mad at you for doing this. But
what, are we going to purposely field a worse team? I mean, of course.
At least make it interesting for the watchers, right? Like,
it's still going to be interesting. Magic is hard, and I mean, like you touched on, 7 of the 8 teams in this are great, and totally. We're playing against Scottsdale Foundation. I mean, look, Paul Rietzel, Matt Sperling, Dave Williams, all premium team drafters, all expert team drafters. You know what they're doing, and very good players. Yeah. So even if I declare us the better team, which of course, isn't factual, is just my opinion, maybe, we have a small edge. I mean, they are a great team, and sure, it's going to be really tough. One of the things I really like about team draft is since it's first to 5, best of 9, you might have a really good match, where it goes, 5-4, 5-3, and you say, wow, that was really tough. And then, you have to respect the other team. And then sometimes people get 5-0'd, and then you get to talk mad.
Oh, yeah.
Forever, So, we'll have to see how the drafts go, how the matches go. If anybody lays a 5-0 beating, a 5-1 beating, or if you have some epic matches that are 4-4.
I'm sure you got some tweets already typed out there just in case.
Oh, I'm sitting around brainstorming. What I'm going to say to anybody who gets stunk by us.
Yeah,
totally. That's how it is. Look, that's why we play the game.
Totally. So of note, by the way, that match next week, it's going to be at 6:00 rather than 5. All of the matches with the Scottsdale Foundation are going to start 1 hour later than normal. So next week, 6:00 Pacific time. You're not going to want to miss Channel Fireball versus Scottsdale Foundation. But this week, let's take a look at the teams that we've got and I want to get your thoughts on both of these teams. We're going to start with Team Madison here, Ben Stark. And I mean, look, I could just keep saying the same thing over and over. This team's stacked. These teams are amazing. But this is Justin Cohen, Matt Severa, Sam Black coming out of Madison, Wisconsin, and representing one of the hotbeds for limited in the entire country.
Oh, I consider Madison, Wisconsin the hotbed for limited in the world. I mean, if you look at the draft results to come out of there, the pros and the players, I mean, it's just unbelievable. I mean, not only these three, but you're going to see Mike Atron on a different team.
Yep.
You know, Bob Mayer, of course, and, you know, Dustin Stern. I mean, the team draft that has come out of Madison, Wisconsin, I think has got to be the best out of anywhere. I don't even know there's a close second.
Now, what do you think about this team lineup here? Matt Severa, Sam Black, Justin Cohen, as far as current day, you know, kind of where we're at with limited, who's active in the game and that kind of stuff.
I mean, I worked with them for the past 2 years as a member of Team Ultra Pro. And I can tell you that Justin and Sam's limited preparation is second to none. You know, I thought I did a lot of drafts, and I mean, they put me to shame. You know, it would be, you know, I'd be like, you know, I drafted this archetype twice, and they'd be like, oh yeah, we drafted archetype 15 times or whatever. You know, it's, I mean, those guys are just so on top of everything, and you know, they're organized, they're detailed. You know, they keep meticulous track of like everything going on. I mean, they were just incredible teammates to work with, and they're scary opponents for anyone.
Yeah, for sure. And of course, you know, Matt Severa in there as well. He's been at the top tables in these team GPs as well. He's
only won 3 Grand Prix in the past year or so.
Yeah, you know, which puts him like middle of the pack somehow for this field. But okay, and now their competitors definitely on the short list as well. You know, in my mind, when I look at these lists, the 2 teams that really jump off the page, like without getting into subtleties, are you guys, Team Channel Fireball, and this team, Team Peach Garden Oath. And PGO is absurd. I mean, they're just, you know, again, another stacked team, and also very good teammates with each other. You know, we've seen them have success at the Team GPs consistently as well. And that's, of course, Huey Jensen, Reed Duke, and Owen Turtenwald. So this has to be one of the scariest teams out there as well. Oh,
for sure. I mean, you know, in Luis's official team rankings for GP Mexico City, the Team Limited GP that happened last month, or 2 months ago, that me and Ifro and Andrew Cuneo won, he ranked this team, Peach Garden Oath, first, you know, a second. Maybe we're first now because, you know, we upgrade Andrew Cuneo into LSV. But this team is basically considered the best team limited team in the world right now. I think that no one would dispute that. I think if you asked me and Ifro, we would say that, I mean, I can't speak for him, but personally, I would say they're better than a team of me, Cuneo, and Ifro. I think the third best team on Luis's official rankings was Jacob Wilson, Matt Ness, and Party. I think everybody would agree that this is the best team in the world. I think if you asked any of the top teams, I think everybody would say, like, this is the team to beat in the IRL team GPs. Owen Turtenwald, the undisputed best player in the world, in my opinion. You know, just current right now, you know, in terms of preparation and ability. And, you know, there's a pro tour happening tomorrow, and who are you fantasy drafting first? For me, that's Owen Turtenwald. You know, it's not even a question in my mind. William Jensen, one of the best players in the history of the game, you know, maybe not 110% dedicated right now like Owen is. But, you know, he just put up, I think, a top 16 in the last pro tour.
He did.
You know, yeah, I mean, probably a top 10 player in the history of the game, an incredible talent, an old school team drafter, which is interesting because team draft is not a format that we play much on the Pro Tour. It's only in the team GPs, and you have to make the top 4 of the Grand Prix to even get to play it. So that's one area where I feel like we have an edge because I know that, you know, both me and Ifro have been team drafting forever. Yeah. Owen probably team drafted a bit back in 2009 and 10. It was still a little popular then, though it was already waning. Someone like Ryu kind of broke on the Pro Tour in 2010, 11. Like, he may not even have done many team drafts. You know, like, I don't really know how experienced a team drafter Reed is. I know with Huey in his corner that, you know, he's been given lots of great coaching and lots of, you know, Huey's expertise. But we'll have to wait and see and, you know, analyze his draft and see what he knows.
All right, it sounds like they're ready to go, Ben. So it's time to head down. Let's head down for the draft portion in the first episode of Team Draft Super League with Reed Duke. All right, welcome to Team Draft Super League. And look at Reed. He's already highlighted his card. Now, Ben, I want to hear 2 things from you as we go through these picks from Reed, okay? One thing I want to know, just, you know, I want to get your take on the pack in general as far as high quality or how high quality the cards are and such. But I also want to know what things should be going through the drafters' minds as it pertains to team draft specifically rather than regular draft for people that aren't as familiar.
Sure. Well, for example, the card Reed's taking, the Vizier, is by far the best card in the pack, and Reed should absolutely take it. This pick is a no-brainer. That card is completely broken.
Okay.
Now, what's important is Reed also has to keep track of what he's passing.
Magma Spray.
Right. Like, if you look at this pack, it's a pretty weak pack. I mean, there's some playables, but there aren't that many great cards. We know the next best card in the pack is definitely Magma Spray. Third is probably Splendid Agony, right? I don't think that's too debatable. True Heart Twins, maybe fourth. Maybe you could get in a little bit of preference after that. So Reed has a good idea that the person he's passing to is probably going to take this Magma Spray. Now, in an 8-man, that would mean Reed would want to avoid red. But in a team draft, that incentivizes Reed to play red if possible, because if he pushes that person out of red, that means they don't get to play their second pick. So he does damage to the person he's passing to. And since the person he's passing to is playing against him, Owen, and Huey, it's doing damage to their deck is very valuable, just as valuable as strengthening your own deck.
Okay, so let's take a look at the pack that he gets here. Now, I can see he's got a final reward there. And the interesting part to me is that we're thinking in terms of, okay, well, what can Reed do to the person who he's passing to? But remember, the person passing to him is thinking the same thing, right? So Reed has to kind of be on the offensive and the defensive at the same time somehow.
Oh, yeah. When you had team drafts, especially back in the day when there were a little less playables in the packs between two great teams, I mean, you'd finish with 17 playables in a lot of drafts. It was all out war. So in this case, you know, this pack doesn't have a pick like the Vizier. Final reward could be the best card in the pack. It probably is, but it's not by a lot. Exemplar Strength is pretty good. Scatter's a solid card. The Honor Captain for red and white. So Reed selected the final reward, so it looks like he's going to take it. Now, this does create potential problems. If the draft goes the most likely way and the person he's passing to takes Magma Spray, that means his teammate might have took Splendid Agony third.
So yeah.
Now, listen, you're not going to be the only person playing your color in a 6-person pod. It's not the end of the world if you and a teammate are sharing a color. But of course, it's much better if you can get the person you're passing to be your color and your teammate to get to see colors from multiple seats and to be drafting more underdrafted colors. So I think Reed should definitely be aware of that and be flexible on the black. I don't think he should consider himself, you know, really looking to play black necessarily for this final reward.
Okay, we may be redoing the draft here, Ben. I'm looking in the Skype chat, and I'm sure some of you have seen it pop up on Reed's screen, which we should probably tell him to turn off, by the way. That I think Sam may have accidentally goof grabbed, meaning that it picked the card for him. He, you know, whatever, you know, oh, I see. So he, oops. So what happened was, what happened was he hadn't updated Magic Online before we logged on, so he had to download and update it, and it actually took a little too long, so he ended up not getting his first pick. So I think what we're actually going to do is just restart the draft. Does that sound about right to you? Okay, yeah, that's what we're going to do. So this is kind of exciting. We had a little test run there. We saw a Vizier of Many Faces in a final reward, but we are going to get to rerun it here right now. They're going to be redoing it right now. We do apologize for the false start there, but we want to make sure this is correct, right? It's more important to us, of course, that this thing is done correctly. And you know, even the first pick is such an important juncture, right, Ben? Like, you just can't have that signal and that level of card quality disappear from a player like that.
Yeah, and no one should get to start with a card as broken as the Vizier anyway, so this is better.
that was unfair.
Yeah, I mean, come on. Reach it after first pick final reward, not broken clone Vizier. Come on.
Agreed. So it looks like they're getting that set up again now. So you and I can just kick back and have a little chat. That is, you know, to me, Ben, I've been trying to absorb this, right? Because I never was around a group of players who were like, let's team draft all the time. I think I've done 5 or 6 in my life just randomly with you guys and stuff out at events and everything. But I was never in that culture, you know, where it was like, this is what we do. This is the default. Whenever I've drafted, it's been that we make the teams after. We like doing the team aspect, but we do it after because we want to try to figure out what the format looks like for the 8-person drafts that we cover at the Pro Tour and sometimes the GPs, because, and this is from a coverage perspective, because we want to know how that flows. And this looks so much different than that that, we do it that other way.
We do it that way too when we're practicing for Pro Tours.
Sure, yeah, and I know you guys draft on Magic Online a lot as well to practice for Pro Tours so that you can get a feel for that. But for me, it has left me wanting a bit here, right? Because I think this is a really cool, dynamic kind of scenario that we're faced with. And the thing that always comes to my head is, okay, so I feel like I have a good idea of what I'm trying to do to the person on my left, right? Like I have an idea that I'm trying to keep them unsettled. I'm trying to not let them get great cards. I'm trying to disrupt their flow a bit while still keeping my deck intact. And I'm trying to draft a deck that's better than theirs. The thing that gets me, though, is that the person to my right's doing that to me, too. And I don't know how aware I'm supposed to be of what they're doing. If I get past a Magma Spray, I may just take it because it was so much better than the next best card. But I'm not going to just be like, well, I'm in red. I'm getting the clear signal. Like, I'm looking to the right going, yeah, I know what you're doing. You're going to try to cut me off or something here.
You have the right mindset. I mean, it's not like you can always pass and cut, and it's not like you should never pass and cut. It's pack by pack. I mean, are there 2 good red cards in a pack? So I can take one and pass you one. Is there only one? And maybe I float you that one. And then the next pack has 2 and I'm able to take one and pass you one. And then I cut red. Maybe the next pack only has 1 red card and there's a much better white card. So if I want to go red to cut you, I have to pass you this great white card and take this mediocre red card. And then maybe you switch out of red and play this great white card.
Sure.
So, it's exactly what you just said. You should be aware that the person to your right knows they passed you a Magma Spray and is looking to cut you from red. You should not assume they'll definitely play red. You definitely won't see red. You've got to go pick by pick. You've got to be a lot more flexible than an 8-man. And you've just got to be ready and open and just kind of do the best you can to put together that best deck you can while, harming the person you're passing to as much as you possibly can. That's why I called it all-out war.
I love this.
It's not cooperative. It's total war.
I do love this, by the way. I think I'm going to really, really enjoy playing in this thing until we get into the matches.
But I don't think it's like twice as fun or twice as hard as regular draft. I mean, I think it's like 10 times as hard and 10 times as fun. I mean,
oh really? Wow!
It's so interesting.
Oh, that's great. I'm just glad we got you here to walk us through it here because, like I said, I have a rudimentary understanding of what's going on, but I really do need somebody who's got a lot more experience at this type of drafting. And I'm really happy that you're able to come on because I'm gonna lean on you here, Ben.
Oh, no problem. I mean, if I were to describe my childhood in a nutshell, it would be go to a friend's house and team draft all night. That's pretty much my life from age 14, age 24 or whatever. It's just do as many team drafts as possible at home in Florida, at the game store, at friends' houses, at Grand Prix, at Pro Tours. Once I got on the Pro Tour and all of that, just nonstop forever. So I might be a little rusty. I mean, people just don't do them anymore like they used to.
Yeah, I know. That's part of the reason why I'm kind of excited that we got the Team Draft Super League going is because you don't see it as much as you used to. I mean, they still exist. If you go to a Pro Tour on Sundays and you look at kind of the player area, they will be over there drafted and you can see it going on. But like the scenario that you described before, that isn't as common anymore. The stay at the site all night and team draft until your eyes get red thing doesn't happen quite as often.
No, sadly, it does not. But hey, maybe this Draft Super League, when people see how awesome it is and how fun it is and how it's the best format of Magic, no debate, end of discussion, maybe they'll want to start doing it. Maybe they'll want to start doing it again, I mean,
we need to get you a gavel. You can just call it there.
I mean, it would be awesome if, people started team drafting more, if we could, get this format going more. It's a wonderful format.
Hey, I got a question for you from the chat here. And this is a really interesting one. Well, there's 2 questions I need to ask you, but the first one is they want to know, does team draft end up being a slower format, like speed of the game wise, because people generally have like clunkier, worse decks?
Yes, definitely. I think one of the things in particular that makes LSB one of the best team drafters in the world, he's really good at winning with bad decks. He's not the kind of person that needs to have a good curve and the pump spells and use all his mana every turn to find value in games of Magic. I think, as a teammate, I got to play with him in 2 team Grand Prix last year. It's a treat to watch him work with scraps, Like he's very, very, very good at that. And I think that that's a problem a lot of current players might have is they're used to drafting these perfect curve, perfect synergy, perfect mana decks. And it's so hard to get that in team draft.
See, that's actually what I'm worried about, because I've put a lot of effort into trying to put myself in a spot to draft decks like that as often as possible, and I know I'm not going to get them here, so I really have to scrap. Other question they had for you is, what kind of sandwich do you get at Subway?
It varies, you know.
When you make it there.
Well, I mean, truthfully, Subway is just so great that basically all of their sandwiches are amazing. So, I mean, you know, there's not like one sandwich to get at Subway.
Come on.
You can get the tuna, you can get the turkey. I mean, you know, you're not going to go wrong. I mean, go with the roast beef. It's going to be a good time. I mean, everything at Subway is magnificent. I mean, it's just,
that is clearly a professional, analyst here, right? He's giving us the lowdown on everything.
Sandwich heaven. And if you want me to wear a patch or something, get at me, Subway. BenS8528 on Twitter.
They also want to know from the chat, do you think that going into 3 colors is viable? Like, are you more likely to go into 3 colors in a team draft than you would be normally?
Yes, absolutely. I don't think 665 is that productive of a mana base these days. So I think to go 3, you've got to be looking at a couple fixtures. Mm-hmm. But I think that in a normal draft, just averaged out, I maybe play 3 colors, like not counting like a 1-card splash with an Evolving Wilds or something, but actually play 3 colors, maybe like 10% of the time. Like, it's pretty rare. In team draft, I probably play 3 colors like a third of the time, like 33% of the time, like a lot more. You know what I mean? Like, not straight 3, but definitely like 7/7/4 with a fixer-ish mana bases. Things like that are much more common in team draft than in regular draft.
You were talking about some of the tricks and things that can happen during the draft portion, like the hook and cut, you called it. That's where you pass somebody a good card, they take it thinking the color's open, and then you start taking that color, and they struggle with trying to find playables. What about, I've heard people, maybe there's a name for it, but when you try to pass a card through somebody, meaning that you don't think that they're able to take it for their deck, but that your teammate is there a name for that, by the way?
Yeah, floating it.
So go ahead.
Oh, sure. That's probably the second most important concept in team draft that doesn't apply in regular draft. Pass and cut being the most important. A clear example, just to make it really simple and straightforward, would be if you imagine that there are 2 cards in a pack that are green and they're exactly equivalent. Maybe it's the same card even, but let's just say they're 2 commons that are very close in power level. In this set, maybe like the 4 mana 4/3 that ups or downs a counter, and the 2 mana 2/2 that death touch, +1/+1 death touch when it attacks. Good cards, very close in power level. Let's say the other card in the pack is completely unplayable, and you got past that pack, and you're playing black-red. If you hate draft one of the green cards, the opponent you're passing to gets the other green card, and your teammate gets the unplayable. So what's the end result there? You got nothing because you're black-red and you got a green card.
Right.
The opponent's got a green card that's solid or whatever. We don't know if they're green or not, but either way they got it. And your teammate got nothing, the unplayable. Let's say on the other hand, you take the unplayable card. It could literally be a basic land. You don't have basic lands in the pack anymore, but if you got past that pack with a basic mountain in it, you draft the basic mountain because you float one of the playable green cards to your teammate. Because you don't really care which of the green cards the the opponent gets, because they're roughly equivalent in power level. It's not a big deal. But maybe your teammate is green, and maybe your teammate now lands a solid playable as opposed to nothing because you took the unplayable. You float the green playable to your teammate.
Yeah, that's interesting. Right. That makes a lot of